Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another video of ChemSolve. Let's start a new paper today. Today's paper is 5070 variant 1-2 October-November 2025. So let's start the paper. Question number 1. Question number 1 says separate samples of water and the air each have a volume of 30 cm cube. Okay, so water is a liquid and air is of course a gas, have a volume of 30 cm cube. Volume of 30 cm cube at room temperature and pressure. The pressure applied to both sample is increased. Pressure is being increased by the same amount at room temperature. Which row describes the volume at the increased pressure? Okay, so here we have to keep in mind the gas laws. Pressure and volume, are inversely proportional to each other. But these laws are applicable only on the gases. So that's why there wouldn't be any effect of this pressure change on the volume of the water, because water is a liquid. That's why the volume of the water will remain same. So option A and B couldn't be our options, because here the volume of the water has been changed. So we have to compete between C and D. Okay, so what is the effect of increasing pressure on the volume? When we increase the pressure, you can see from this relationship that when we increased the pressure, then what happens? The volume basically decreases. Increasing the pressure decreases the volume. So if we are increasing the pressure, then the volume will decrease, and the correct option would be option C here. Okay. Question number 2. Why does a balloon full of helium gas become smaller as the temperature changes from 30 to 10 degrees Celsius? What we are going to do, we are basically decreasing the temperature. Okay, when we will decrease the temperature, then the kinetic energy will be changed. So temperature decrease will lead to the decrease in kinetic energy. And when the kinetic energy will decrease, obviously molecules move slowly. And if molecules will move slowly, then there would be less force on a given area. Pressure is equal to force over area, so pressure will be reduced. So look at the options. Option A says the gas condenses. Yes, when we decrease the pressure, then the gas condenses, but because there's a very little temperature change, and that is not enough for the condensation, so option A couldn't be the correct one. The gas particle becomes smaller. No, temperature has nothing to do with the mass of and the size of the particle. The gas particle diffuses through the balloon and escape. Diffusion is directly proportional to the temperature. So if the temperature is decreasing, then rate of diffusion should also decrease. So C isn't the correct one. That's how our correct option is option D, which says the gas particles move slowly. Yes, they move slowly, as we have talked about it. So they move slowly here, and reducing the pressure. Yes, pressure is being reduced. So option D is the correct one. Okay, look at question number 3. Atom X has an atomic number 19 and a nuclear number 42. Okay, so X is atomic number 19 and nuclear number 42. So there are 19 protons because the atomic number is 19, and there will be 19 electron, and we will get the neutron number by subtracting 42 from 19, and which is 23 neutrons. Okay, look at Y. For atom Y, the atomic number is 20 and the nuclear number is 40. So that's how the proton number are 20, the electron number are 20 as well, and neutron number are obtained by subtracting 40 from 20, and they are 20 as well. Okay, now look at the options. Option A says an atom X contains 2 more electrons. Atom X contains 2 more electrons than atom Y. Okay, so the electrons are 19 here and electrons are 20 here. So Y has 1 more electron. That's how this option is incorrect. Atom X contains 3 more neutrons than atom Y. Atom X contains, yes, they are 23 and this is 20. So this option is the correct one. B is the correct one. Okay, question number 4. In which ionic compound do all the ions have the same electronic configuration? So for that we have to write down the formulas and the ions for all these ionic compounds, and then we will look at their electron number. So let's start solving. Beryllium sulfide. So beryllium is Be positive 2 because belongs to group 2, and sulfide is S minus 2. Okay, so lithium fluoride, it has Li positive 1 and F minus 1. Magnesium chloride, it is Mg positive 2 and chloride is Cl minus 1. Sodium oxide, sodium is Na positive 1 and oxide is minus 2. Now look at their electron number. The atomic number of the beryllium is 4, and for sulfur it is 16. For lithium it is 3. For fluorine the atomic number is 9. Magnesium has the atomic number 12 and chlorine has 17. Sodium has 11 and oxygen has 8. Okay, so now let's find out their electron number. If beryllium has 4 electron and 2 of them has been lost, so the electron number will be 2 electron. Sulfur has 16 and it has gained 2 electrons, so total 18 electron. For lithium, 3 electrons already and 1 electron has been lost, so 2 electrons are left. For fluorine there are 9 electrons and 1 electron has been gained, so there are total 10 electrons. For magnesium there are 12 electrons already and 2 electron has been lost, so 10 electrons are here. And for chlorine 17 electrons it already has and 1 has been gained, so total electrons are 18 here. In the case of sodium ions there are already 11 electrons and 1 electron has been lost, so 10 electrons are here. And oxygen has 8 electrons and 2 electron has been gained, so it makes 10 electron. So you can see that this is the pair which has the equal number of the electron. That's why this would be our correct option. Sodium oxide is the correct option. So for 4 the option is D. Okay, which ion has a positive charge? Okay, let's look at their charges. Ammonium has the formula NH4 positive 1. Carbonate is CO3 minus 2. Manganate is MnO4 minus 1 and sulfite is SO3 minus 2. So it's clear from the formula that option A is the correct one. Basically you need to learn these formulas by yourself because they are not present in the periodic table and they are called the polyatomic ions. Okay, question number 6. Which row is correct about structure and bondings of the hydrogen chloride and structure and bonding of the diamond? As you know that hydrogen chloride is a simple molecule. It is between a non-metal and a non-metal and it will form a simple covalent molecule. So it is simple covalent molecule, while diamond, it's a giant molecular structure. So keeping this information in our mind, A and B are the incorrect one and we have to look at C and D then. Okay, then option C says for diamond it's a simple molecule, so of course it's a wrong one. The correct option is C then. Okay, question number 7. Powdered calcium carbonate react with dilute hydrochloric acid to produce calcium chloride, water and carbon dioxide. Which row tells the ionic equation including the state symbol for this reaction? Okay, so let's write down the equation first. What's our equation? Calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is CaCO3. It reacts with HCl and it gives CaCl2 plus H2O and plus CO2. Okay, so my dear student, while writing the ionic equation, we should keep in mind that what things we should ionize and what things we should not ionize. So always remember that we should ionize the soluble salts and alkalis and acids, and we should not ionize if something exists as a liquid at room temperature, it's a gas, it's metal or any kind of solid, or insoluble salt. So keeping this information in our mind, we should not ionize calcium carbonate because calcium carbonate is insoluble salt. So we will write down it as such. Hydrogen chloride, HCl, the hydrochloric acid, it will be ionized as H positive and Cl negative, and both of them would be aqueous. CaCl2 will be ionized as well because it's a soluble salt, so it will be aqueous as well. Water is a liquid, so it will not be ionized. Carbon dioxide is a gas and it will not be ionized as well. So Cl negative is on both sides of the equation, so it will be cancelled out. Now look at the equation. Of course, C and D are the incorrect one because here calcium carbonate has been ionized, so we will not consider these one. We have to compete between the option A and B. Now look at option A and B with our equation. Our equation say calcium carbonate should be here, so calcium carbonate should be here. Okay, now according to our equation, H positive should be here, while equation A, there's no ionization shown for HCl. So of course it would be the incorrect one. Now CaCO3 is here and CaCO3 is here. H positive, then Ca positive 2, Ca positive 2, H2O and CO2. So our correct option is option B. Next question, question number 8. Which structure shows the carboxylic acid with the lowest relative molecular mass? Okay, for this question we have to keep two things are in mind. The first thing, we have to look for a carboxylic acid, and then if we find out the carboxylic acid, then we have to find out its relative molecular mass, and our option would be the one with the lowest relative molecular mass. All right, so let's see. Okay, so option D is not the correct one. Why? Because here there is no carboxylic acid group here, it is an alcohol, so D is the incorrect one. By the way, the function group for carboxylic acid is C double bond OH, so we are looking for this function group. Again, option D, C is the incorrect one because it do not contain carboxylic acid function group that we are looking for, so it's missing here, so this is incorrect one. Okay, now match the option B with our function group. Our function group says C double bond OH and C double bond OH is present here. Our function, this is the C double bond OH and C double bond OH is present here, so we have to compete between option A and B. Now find out their relative molecular mass. So the relative molecular mass for option A is carbon 12, oxygen 16 times 2 and hydrogen 1 times 2, it makes 46. And for option B, here are 2 carbon, 12 multiplied by 2, oxygen 16 times 2 and hydrogen 1 times 4, it makes 60. So we have to look for the lowest molecular mass. That's why option B is incorrect one. So the correct option is option A. Okay, next question, question number 9. We have to do a lot of calculation for question number 9. A mixture of 2 gram of hydrogen and 32 gram of oxygen occupied a volume V. Okay, so this is the equation we are provided with, and we have to find out two things: which reactant is in excess and what is the final volume of the mixture. Okay, so we are provided with the masses of the hydrogen and the oxygen. So let's find out their number of moles with the help of these information that we are provided with. Okay, so number of moles of hydrogen, 2 gram of the mass, and 2 is the mR of the hydrogen, so number of moles will be 1 mole. Okay, then number of moles of oxygen, oxygen is 32 here, and the molar mass of the oxygen is also 32, so it would be 1 mole as well. Okay, so initial moles of hydrogen are initial moles is 2 mole. Okay, so for 2 mole the volume provided is V. According to the question, it is V. So now look at the balanced chemical equation. According to the balanced chemical equation, 2 mole of hydrogen react with 1 mole of oxygen. So I can write it like this. Two moles of hydrogen react with 1 mole of oxygen. Okay, so if this is the scenario, then 1 mole of hydrogen, which is the quantity we have here, react with half of the oxygen. So it will react with 0.5 moles of oxygen. Okay, so basically the oxygen that is required for this reaction is 0.5 moles, but we have 1 mole of oxygen. It's mean that oxygen is present in excess. Oxygen is more than that is required. So from this discussion we reach to a conclusion that option A and B are the incorrect one, because oxygen is the one who is in excess. So we have to compete between option C and D. Now look at the other part of the question, that is for the final volume. So how to calculate the final volume? Two moles is volume V. Okay, so if we have 0.5 moles, because 0.5 mole we have total 1 mole of the oxygen, 0.5 mole of the oxygen has been used. Now we are left only with the 0.5 moles of the oxygen. So according to the question, what happens, these 2 moles of the oxygen, they will be utilized. This oxygen, half of it will be utilized, and we are not going to consider water because water is a liquid. So we just have to look for the gases volume. So the volume that is left is 0.5 moles. So how much volume does 0.5 moles have? 0.5 times V over 2. If I solve it, 0.5 over 2 times V, so it would be 1 over 4 V, so I can write it V over 4. That's how the correct option is option C. Okay, again we have to do calculation. A chemist prepared calcium nitrate. Okay, they start with 8 gram of the pure calcium oxide and in excess of dilute nitric acid. They produce 12.65 gram of pure dry anhydrous calcium nitrate crystals. What is the percentage yield of the calcium nitrate? Okay, so we have done these questions already in our mole series. If you didn't know it, then you can watch that series and you will get an idea about these type of question very well. The first thing that we should keep in mind is that this amount 12.65, this is basically our practical yield, or we can say this is our actual yield. So we are not going to use here, we will use it later on in our formula. So first of all, we have to find out the theoretical yield with the help of these informations, and then we will use our formula for the percentage yield to calculate. Okay, so I need to write the equation first. Equation is CaO, calcium oxide, is reacting with nitric acid, so 2H, and it will produce calcium nitrate, that is CaNO3 twice plus water. Okay, now the mass of the calcium oxide is being given, so I will find out the number of moles of calcium oxide. 8 divided by the molar mass of the calcium oxide, that is 56, so the moles are 0.1428. all right. And as you can see from the balanced chemical equation that the ratio between calcium oxide and calcium nitrate is 1:1. So that's why CaO and CaNO3 twice are in 1:1. That's why there would be same number of moles for calcium nitrate as well, and they would be 0.1428 moles. Okay, now we have find out the number of moles of the calcium nitrate, but in the formula of the percentage yield we have to use the mass, so we will convert these moles into mass. Mass of calcium nitrate would be moles multiply its molar mass. So let's calculate the molar mass of the calcium nitrate. It is 164, 23.4 gram. So this is our theoretical yield. Now use the formula of the percentage yield. The formula says actual yield divided by theoretical yield multiplied by 100. So our actual yield is 12.65. Theoretical yield we just have calculated, and it is 23.4 times 100. So the answer would be 54%. This is our final answer, and according to this The correct option is option A. I hope it makes sense to you. Now look at question number 11. The apparatus shown is used to investigate the electrolysis using inert electrode of dilute sulfuric acid and concentrated aqueous sodium chloride. Okay, so we have two electrolyte here. The one is dilute sulfuric acid. Okay, in the case of dilute sulfuric acid, we have two types of the ions, H positive and SO4 minus 2, and of course it is dilute, so it would have hydroxyl ion as well from water, and H positive from the water and as well as from the H2SO4. So at cathode, which is negatively charged, hydrogen gas will be formed, and at anode, which is positively charged, of course negative ions will move, hydroxyl ion will move towards it and oxygen will be formed, and the ratio between them is hydrogen to oxygen ratio is 2:1. When we balance the equation in the electrolysis of the dilute sulfuric acid, then the ratio is 2:1. Okay, so look for one more thing. Test tube X. Test tube X is basically connected to the positive terminal. It's mean it is anode. And test tube Y is connected to negative, so it is cathode. So from here, oxygen will move towards X and hydrogen will move towards Y. Okay, now concentrated sodium chloride, it would have H positive and OH negative from water and Na positive and Cl minus 1 from the sodium chloride. So at cathode, that is negatively charged, positive ion will move towards it, and of course hydrogen will be formed. And at anode, that is positively charged, negative ion will move towards it, and of course chlorine will be move here. The ratio would be between hydrogen and chlorine, it would be 1:1. Okay, so from concentrated sodium chloride at anode, chlorine is gonna formed, and at cathode, of course, hydrogen. So now look at the options. Basically X is anode, so at X oxygen is formed, and Y is cathode, hydrogen is formed, and here hydrogen is at Y and chlorine at X. So we are looking for X to Y ratio. we have to find out X to Y ratio for dilute sulfuric acid. So X to Y ratio is 1:2. X to Y is 1:2. So 1:2. If 1:2 is the correct option, then this is the wrong one, this is the wrong one. We have to look for A or C. But here the X to Y ratio is 1:1. That is here. So C is the correct option. I hope it makes sense to you. Now question number 12. Which statement about reaction is correct? A reaction in which the number of bonds broken equals to the number of bonds formed always has an enthalpy change 0. No, this is incorrect. Why? Because in all reactions the strength of the bond are not the same. Some bonds are stronger, some bonds are weaker, so different type of energy is released in different type of reactions. So this is not applicable on all the reaction. Combustion can be either exothermic or endothermic. Of course not. Combustion is always exothermic. So again, this is the wrong one. In exothermic reaction, thermal energy is transferred to the surrounding. Yes, exothermic are the ones in which thermal energy is transferred to the surrounding, so the temperature of the surrounding increases. When we add on the energy, when we add on the heat, then of course the surrounding temperature would be increased. So that's how our correct option is option C. Okay, in question number 13, again we have to do a lot of calculation. There are two equations provided for reaction 1 and for reaction 2. Okay, so we will write down these equations one by one. For reaction 1, ethene and hydrogen. So ethene is 2 carbon, hydrogen, 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 and hydrogen, and then hydrogen is added and ethane is formed. So okay, so this is the reaction. Now we will cut down the bonds which are similar on both sides of the equation. So here is a CH bond, I will cut down. Here is a CH bond, I will cut down. Again CH bond, again CH bond, again CH bond, and this CH bond, this CH bond, and this CH bond. So we have cancelled a 4 CH bond which were on the both sides of the equation, but do it so carefully, and if you will cut an extra bond, then of course your calculation will be all messed up. Okay, so we are left with carbon double bond, carbon bond, that is 612 kilojoule per mole, and we are left with this hydrogen bond. So its energy is 436. By adding them we will get 1048. Okay, now look at the product. This is for the reactant, and now we are calculating for the product. So here is one carbon single bond carbon bond, and its energy is 347, and 2 carbon hydrogen bonds, and the energy is 413 times 2, that is 826. So adding 347 with 826, we will get 1173. Now the formula for the enthalpy change of reaction 1 is reactant minus product. So for reactant we have this value, and for product we have this value. By subtracting we get minus 125 kilojoule per mole. Okay, so we have to remember this value. Okay, now move towards the reaction 2. Again ethene, so carbon double bond carbon, one hydrogen is here, and like this it is being added in bromine, and double bond would be converted into the single bond. These hydrogen will remain as such, and here we will add true bromine. Okay, now I'm gonna cut the bonds which are similar on both sides. So here's a carbon single bond carbon and CH bond. Again here's a CH bond, here's a CH bond, then this CH bond with this CH bond, this CH bond with this CH bond. So all the CH bond is being cancelled out. On reactant side we are left with carbon double bond carbon, and it is 612, and bromine single bond bromine, that is 193. By adding them we get 805. Okay, now look at the product side. We are left with carbon single bond carbon, and that is 347, and carbon and bromine bond, which are 2. So 2 times 290, it would be 580. So adding 347 with 580 we get 927. So for delta H of reaction 2, reactant minus product. So for reactant we have 805, and for product we have 927. It makes minus 122 kilojoule per mole. Okay, still we have to calculate one more thing, and that is the difference in their enthalpy changes. So the difference in their enthalpy changes would be, I'm gonna solve it here, delta H1 minus delta H2. So delta H1 is minus 125 minus 122 minus 125 plus 122, and it would be minus 3 kilojoule per mole. So our correct option is, of course, option C. Look, a lot of calculation is here in one question. Okay, question number 14. Two changes are being described. Copper is added into the concentrated nitric acid and nitrogen dioxide is produced. If something new is being produced, then of course this is the chemical change. Because in a chemical reaction always something new is being formed. Okay, concentrated sulfuric acid added to the sugar, the change that occur cannot be reversed. This sentence is much more important. If something is not being reversed, it's mean it is a chemical change again. So both of them are the chemical change. Our correct option would be option A. Okay, which change increase the rate of chemical reaction? Using a higher pressure in a gaseous reaction. Yes, this statement seems to be correct, but look at the other one as well. Using a lower temperature. No. If we lower the temperature, then kinetic energy is low and there would be less collision. And if there are less collision, then of course the rate of reaction would be decreased. Using more dilute solution. If we will use more dilute solution, then there would be less concentration. And if there is less concentration, then there would be again less collision and less rate of reaction. Using a large pieces. Using large pieces mean less surface area. If there is less surface area available, then again there would be less collision and less rate of reaction. So that's how the correct option is option A. Question number 16. In two separate experiments, 1 and 2, excess powder calcium carbonate reacted in a flask with dilute hydrochloric acid. Okay, let's write down the equation first. Calcium carbonate is reacting with HCl and it is producing CaCl2, water of course, and carbon dioxide gas. Okay. In experiment number 1, the volume of the carbon dioxide evolve is measured, and in experiment number 2, the mass of the flask and its content measured at regular interval. Okay, so this is our previous concept, and we should know that if a gas is produced, then of course the volume would increase. If a gas is being produced, then volume should increase. So volume will increase here gradually. This volume will increase gradually. So of course X is not the correct one. Okay, and mass of the flask and its content of course they will decrease, but they will not decrease to 0. So again Z is the correct one. So we are left between Y and W. For experiment number 1 it is W, and for experiment number 2 it is Y. So that's how the correct option is option A. Okay. Which statement about the Haber process for the manufacture of ammonia is correct? So let's write down the equation for the Haber process first. For Haber process, basically N2, that is a gas, it reacts with hydrogen, again that is a gas, this is a reversible reaction. Ammonia is formed, which is a gas as well. So now look at the options. At equilibrium, the concentration of the reactant and the product are no longer changing. Yes, this is the correct one. Exactly. Equilibrium is basically when the concentration of both the reactant and the product becomes equal. So this statement is correct. Increasing the pressure moves the position of the equilibrium to the right. Increasing the pressure basically moves the equilibrium towards less number of moles. It moved towards a less number of moles. Okay, so how many moles are here? Here in the reactant there are 4 moles, and in the product there are 2 moles. So reaction will move towards lesser number of moles. So lesser number of moles are here towards the right. Again, this is the correct one. Okay. Increasing the temperature moves the position of the equilibrium to the left. Haber process is basically an exothermic process. And for all exothermic process, when we increase the temperature, the reaction moves towards left, towards the reactant side. So it will move here. So again, this is the correct option. So that's how option A seems to be the correct one. Next question. Acidified aqueous potassium manganate is used as a test reagent. Okay. Potassium manganate. Acidified potassium manganate. It is an oxidizing agent. Okay. When it is added to an aqueous solution of the compound M, the color of the test reagent changes from. Okay, so for potassium manganate, the color change is purple to colorless. There is a table in your book in the chapter redox reaction, and there are all the color changes of the oxidizing and the reducing agent are being mentioned. You can look for that table in your textbooks. So if it is purple to colorless, then it's mean A and B couldn't be our option. We have to compete between C and D. Okay, when it is added to an aqueous solution of compound M, the color of the test reagent changes from purple to colorless, and this color change shows that M is. Okay, so basically aqueous potassium manganate is an oxidizing agent, so it will basically oxidize the other thing. So the other thing would be oxidized here. That's how the correct option is option C. In a neutralization reaction, which change in the particle occurs? Okay, just take the example of a simple neutralization reaction. Let's react sodium hydroxide with HCl, and it produces NaCl and H2O. In the start of this paper, we have already written ionic equation, and we know that basically we have to ionize Na positive and OH negative, H positive and Cl negative, and of course Na positive and Cl minus 1. H2O is a liquid, it will not be ionized. So Na will be cancelled with Na positive, Cl negative will be cancelled with Cl negative. So we are left with H positive plus OH negative gives us H2O. So you can see these are the ions, and it is being changed into a molecule. So ions are being changed into molecule. This is the correct option. Okay, question number 20. Which pair of the substances are both insoluble in water? So for that you have to look at a table in your textbook. In the chapter salts, there is a solubility of the salt table. If you will learn that table, then you will easily recognize that which salts are soluble and which salts are insoluble. So for now, ammonium chloride. Ammonium chloride is the soluble salt. And ammonium carbonate, it is again the soluble salt. By the way, all the salts of ammonium are soluble. Copper carbonate, it is insoluble. Copper hydroxide, it is also insoluble. You must remember that salt analysis table in which we add NaOH and aqueous ammonia to look for the precipitate and the color changes. This is from that table. Lead nitrate, it is soluble. Again, all nitrates are soluble. All ammonium salts are soluble. All nitrates are soluble. Lead chloride, it is insoluble. Zinc sulfate, again it is soluble. And zinc hydroxide is insoluble. So the correct option is option B, in which we have both of them which are insoluble.